Greetings everyone, my name is Buck Business. Konnichiwa, I'm Kawaii Critic, and we're finally back to review My Little Pony Season 8, School Daze Part 1 and 2. So, before we can even begin this review, we have to put something forward. So, it is with unfortunate saying, but it must be said that these videos will most likely never be fully scripted. So, if these reviews suck, we apologize, but there's not really much we can do, as we both have a main channel to focus on the week, and we also have jobs, because YouTube doesn't pay us anything, and it's never gonna pay us unless we can magically just get to 1,000 subscribers from where we are now. The best I could do, or we could do, is put together some few notes and a basic gist, and we'll just have to take it from there. Indeed. So, this episode begins probably with its most, I would say, daring of pulls of what just happened fairly not too long ago, and that's a reference to the movie that came out earlier this year, or last year. I already forgot what year it came out, but whatever. They mention Tempest as well, Tempest, and it's fairly odd. This intro purely depends on us, the viewers, watching the movie. If this had been someone who had never seen the movie before, they'll have no idea what's kind of going on, but it doesn't last too long. So, Twilight-san quickly transitions into talking about wanting to open a school to teach friendship to students of varying races. And oddly enough, the intro is still the same, even though I'd heard that they were going to change at least the visual aspects of it, but that didn't seem to be the case. Maybe they'll do it for the next episode? I don't know. Anyway, of course, Celestia-san loves this idea, so she goes over what is called the EEA. It's something about Equestria and rules. Anyway, after she goes over what the rules are basically about, Twilight-san then goes to this, what I can only describe as a dark council. There, we meet our antagonist of this episode, Naysayer, because that name isn't on the nose enough. And, what do you know, they actually do manage to get the approval they want. So, Twilight goes to the remaining 6 at this point, I suppose, and the others kinda, they seem up for it eventually anyway. So, they get rushed in when they open their school on their first day to see a vast majority of ponies and other creatures make their way inside. It's definitely a sight that no one else expected, because I suppose Twilight just never ended up telling them. So we see our group of characters that I'm going to refer to as the Student 6, I think that's the best thing I can come up with the short amount of time I have. I don't know what others will refer to them as, but we shall refer to them as the Student 6. So, graciously, because this episode was kind of quick, I kind of had trouble getting all of their names down, so I quickly did a quick Google search, and luckily I was able to at least find an image that has all of them in it with all of their names underneath as a bit of a cheat sheet, because I honestly didn't remember most of their names at the end of the episode. So I have the image off the camera right now, but I'm going to read them from left to right and describe what they look like, and to the best of my abilities, describe their personalities. So we have Sandbar, who is a generic-looking pony with sort of this blue color to his hair and mane, and a more greenish color to his actual, the rest of him. And his personality seems to be a bit on the downer side, and sort of plays by the rules kind of character, but he does kind of eventually break down from that later on in the episode. We have Gallius, who is a griffin, essentially the new Rainbow Dash in its most basic form. We have Silverstream, who is a griffin, who I can only describe as the new Pinkie Pie. Then there is Ocellus, a changeling, and she is the new Fluttershy, the shy pony, or changeling. Oh, I forgot to describe the other two, didn't I? There was Gallius, who's this sort of blue griffin. Then there's Silverstream, she's a light pink griffin. And then there's Ocellus, who's a light blue changeling. Anyway, moving on. There is Yona, who is a, well, brown yak. She's sort of a general klutz of the group. So I guess she technically isn't fitting with any of the others that I can currently think of. Hopefully, I'm gonna say this now, because I already know that the Student 6, I know for a fact that these 6 are gonna keep appearing. I mean, this episode ends with them still there, so clearly, and the school's still open at the end. Spoiler alert. Big deal. Like, we all knew that was gonna happen. Anyway, she's, she represents the Yaks, and as previous episodes have indicated, the Yaks haven't had the best of treatment. Heck, even the previous Yak leader was in this episode, and he's still essentially the same character, so that's much to be desired from the act, so she has a lot of weight to pull from here on out. Then we have a new dragon, who is an orange female dragon named Smolder. And that's our Student 6. There we go. Alrighty then. So these elder ponies were the ones to bring them in. Thorax brought in the changeling, Amber brought in the dragon, and we met some other elder ponies and other creatures as well. Gallius had another griffin with him. Silverstream had another griffin. I didn't get either of those two names, and Sandbar just seemed to be on his own for the most part. I'm not really sure what his deal was, but nonetheless, and I already mentioned that Yona came with the other, the prince. I forget his actual name, but I'll just call him the Prince Yak for now. So anyways, as the school is sort of making its way, we begin a song. And for the most part, it's an okay song. They talk about how school is all about, well, their school is all about learning about friendship and how they can possibly pass or fail. It's a bit of a reminiscence of when, well, Twilight-san was worried about failing, about passing a test. Very similar, but the tone of it is a bit different and gets a little bit wonky from the tone of the music. Again, it's not too offbeat, and again, it has a literal sense. Failing friendship, again, from just a literal sense, it does sound a bit odd, but regardless, it gets the job done, I suppose. It's obviously not one of the better songs, but it just sort of pads along the episode at best. So we see Twilight-san start to follow the book more and more and more, and the students start hating school as the others that are teaching are put in places where they're not able to get to their strong suits and talk about what they want to. And this even starts to get the student six to start arguing with each other. And out of the three originals, or two of the originals and the main seventh of Starlight, Rainbow-san, Apple-san, and Starlight-san all see that this isn't going well. So now everyone's coming to Twilight-san, and she really wants to double down on her efforts and their efforts to keep the school up and good enough until the EA rules are followed to the best extent that it could be. However, some of them start to want to leave, that being Smolder and Gallius, I believe it was, the two that wanted to leave specifically, and they eventually convinced the others to leave as well. So, the changeling, sorry, looking at my cheat sheet here, because, yeah, anyway, Ocelius changes into Rarity to trick Fluttershy so that they can keep going. So anyways, Mr. Naysayer returns to get his, he's trying to find fault in the rules, and he's following Rainbow Dash. Meanwhile, the families of all the Student 6 are now there, because Twilight-san had invited them to show that this school is going to be all about what it is. So, the changeling Ocelius-chan, she went about changing her form into this bigger form, and she couldn't quite control her momentum in this new form. She ends up crashing into the school. And from here we get our most obvious of points, where Naysayer points to all the other creatures and say they are all at fault, and because of this, it's starting to drive all the other families away, and thus he proceeds to lock down the school. Now, this is what probably makes Naysayer an interesting character, is that he kind of has this speciesist attitude towards the other creatures, and his attitude also follows a very current, or even at best, very recent attitude of human behavior. This sort of, if it's one, then it has to be all type. Again, this happens very often in politics, on both sides as well. If one, say, Republican does something bad, then all Republicans are bad. Or if one Democrat is bad, then by default all Democrats are bad. This is a tactic we've both seen in politics, and again, it's followed up by, if it's one, then it has to be all. Not even most, or some, but it has to always be all. And again, Naysayer follows this line of it's all creatures that are not ponies. Not even most, or some, or even a few. It's always all. And here's the crazy part. If he had said any other word besides all, he could have had a better argument, a better point about what he was saying. Yeah, he was on about how, defending the pony life isn't very important, but again, he goes to the all tactic, which makes his point less valid. But again, he still is an interesting antagonist because of this. He seems, again, most of the other villains, even when Starlight was more out there, he seems more subdued in his tactics here. But that is the end of part 1. So we move on to part 2, where Specky-kun goes to Twily-san's aid as she's crying under her little pillow fort, feeling completely helpless as the others, with the exception of Starlight-san, try to cheer her up. They all fail, so she moves on about, and Starlight-san eventually meets her afterwards. And once again, Starlight-san continues to be a poorly written character, as she is now suddenly the conscience in Twily-san's voice. Okay, so when did she steal Spiky-kun's job? That's essentially a part of his character, but now Starlight-san is that voice of reason? That's absurd. This is my exact problem with her in the episodes like A Royal Problem. It's why I feel like that episode is one of the worst episodes. It's because Starlight-san exhibits a complete change from where she was. She does another 180. Her reform was a 180, and in A Royal Problem, her change from magic always doing the wrong to magic suddenly doing the right was just a simple 180. And now we are here, and now she's the voice of reason, the conscious, in Twily-san's world? Again, that's Spiky-kun's job. What the heck? Why is Starlight-san getting all this other stuff? It doesn't make any sense. Anyways, she ends up tossing up the main guideline, into the water. And that works. We return back to the castle, and they celebrate with Pinky-san having custom party cannons for everybody. So each of the ponies that were there try to change the others' minds, the adults of the situation of the other creatures, to try to get the kids back to the school. So we have Pinky-san visiting the Axe, Verity-san going to the Dragons, Fluttershy-san going to the Changeling, Applejack-san going to the Griffins, or was it Rainbow-san that went to the Griffins? I don't know. Anyway, I almost had all of them, but that's what I got my notes mixed up at that point. Anyway, it's not a big deal. We see and hear that the students have gone missing. So, the elders, of course, are upset by this, and they are at the brink of arguing over each other of where their kin have gone off to. So, while that's going on, the Student 6 are out and about somewhere else, and now we have Sambar, the pony, the generic-looking pony, going to Pinkie Pie's shop. He just sort of goes about his business, and they almost don't even notice him as they're arguing to trying to find them, and they already have him there. But luckily, Pinkie Pie managed to notice enough, and that allows them to follow Sandbar slowly but surely. So, the Student Six find the old castle of the two sisters. And they have a bit of fun. Gallius, the griffin, stops Yuna-chan from bumping into, like, this thing. I believe she almost bumped into the pony. Then when they go outside, they see these small creatures. I didn't get their name. They are like these small spiked creatures. So the Student Six end up getting trapped under these barrels, and the spikes, these creatures are sending spikes towards them, and they are attempting to block. Rainbow Sun appears, and the others shortly after, helping in which ways they can. Pinkie-san ends them off by blasting them off in a cannon. Which also happens to hold parachutes, you know, because Pinkie-san. Anyway, Twilight-san ends up trying to unlock the castle. She's going to do that. She's heading toward that area. And the elders of the group, of each creature group, follow Celestia to this new school, in which then Twilight-san officially breaks the lock. At this point, Naysayer returns, appearing from a portal, and he takes a line essentially straight from the Lord of the Rings, saying none shall pass, creating a boom-like effect. So Twilight says that this school is different from any other school. It's a school specifically akin to friendship and must, and thereby, have its own set of rules to accommodate such a school. It's a shame that colleges don't do this more often. Anyway, another tune with music appears as they go about reforming the school. And it's sort of like the first song. It sort of follows that sort of stranger tune as they try to accommodate for every new creature, and sort of just... It sort of feels like the music was based around the lyrics a little bit too much there. So Twilight-san says something that I don't think a lot of people would hear from her, is that you can't learn everything from a book. That's a shocker, that's for sure. So she's finally coming to that conclusion that even though she just wrote a book earlier about creating her own rules, you can't learn everything from a book. Yeah, that part's really weird, isn't it? The fact that she would create a book and then say you can't learn everything from a book. Silly, Twilight-san. That's just silly. Anyways, they take the new picture, the one you see here, in the center. And of course, as we mentioned back in part 1, that all the students get to stay. And that is School Daze Part 1 and 2. And it's a bit more subdued than some of the other openers of this season. It does introduce our new characters very clearly. Their personalities, some of them match the main 7, and that was probably gonna end up happening to some degree, to some extent, regardless of whether we wanted it or not. So hopefully, with that out of the way, we can get more of these new characters and see what their deals are all about. what we are hoping for is that the lessons, even if they are, repetitive, let's say, for example, I'm not sure if that will be the case, but if they are, let us hope that they are now dedicated toward this new group of characters, and it will be the main seven, the ones literally doing the teaching since they are the teachers. That would make the most sense. Otherwise, it would be kind of silly and odd and poorly written out if it were done any other way. And really, that's all we can ask for of this season. Woo! That's that. That was a long video. Sorry about that, but there was a lot to go through for just 2 parts. With that being said, stick top, tang tong tori! And if you enjoyed this rather lengthy review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, everyone, farewell.